Time now for the conversation with former Mukurwe-ini Member of Parliament, that is Honorable Kabando wa Kabando, on matters state of the nation. And we shall be looking at, what is going on around the country. Remember, he has been very vocal regarding several issues in the country. Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa Kabando, for joining us.
Asante sana ndugu Maringa. It's a pleasure to be here. The very first appearance in the evening and my second overall TV 47. You're doing a good job. Asante sana.
Asante sana, Mheshimiwa. And I'll begin with, your tweets just about 3 a.m. You were tweeting at 3:23 a.m. First of all, what made you tweet at that hour?
There are 5 of my close friends that I communicated with in the morning around that time. And it was something peculiar. I've had a very interesting last 1 week on personal matters. And also over the weekend, I had you in your spot, you mentioned dealing with the golf.
Yes.
Although I'm not an avid golfer myself, I was very engaged from Wednesday all the way to Saturday on my home club's chairman's last week and this week's captain's prize. So it's been a very interesting week. So for some reason, I got a routine of up to late in the night for the past 2 weeks. So I have been trying to adjust. And so today, or yesterday, I would say, let me say today, at around 2:30, my sleep escaped, but more to do with some thoughts that were deep inside me. And if I happen to be on that trajectory, I go to my study. I can be nocturnal.
You can be nocturnal.
Yes.
And you said, to quote your tweet, you said, rather your post on X now, so-called NADCO is a lie set to deodorize a covert deal that perpetuates politics of myopia, greed, graft, bribery, and opportunism. May innocent blood and spirits of maandamano victims haunt those stalking fraudulence, as well as you urge EACC to investigate this NADCO alongside the BBI and recover all funds wasted in what you say illegal processes. And you beseeched the judiciary to once more be the gallant patriotic vanguard against what you said is greedy political elite atrocities. These are your tweets that put on another post you made on X. And what exactly has disappointed you about the NADCO report?
It's actually not a personal disappointment. It's something that is very universal. Yes. You need to track communications, the conversations in various digital platforms, and also talk to people directly. Oftentimes, people who are in power, I've also been there, people who are entrapped to power, or people who are pursuing power, become oblivious of the feelings of the people out here. So the deliberations that have been happening at Bomas have been issued from the very beginning, have not had a public goodwill. You can hear politicians, like I'm one of them, because they are supporting this formation, that is either Raila formation or the Ruto formation, because those are the two that have been bipartisan. There's not been like the Bomas of 2003, 04, 05, where you had stakeholders drawn from across the spectrum of people and the diversity of opinions.
Yes.
So there's been a discussion between Raila men and Ruto men. And by men, I mean men and women. So the people may be saying they are disappointed, but it's not really a radical disappointment. Is a confirmation of what people already knew, that there has been what you call political chicanery or political deception underground. I was in this station the day Raila appeared in the evening in another station and disclosed that he had a meeting with Ruto somewhere not at the State House in Mombasa. But it doesn't matter whether it was State House or Ruto's home or his own home, is that they had a secret meeting, and he said that the following morning he met his team to brief them about the meeting. The very fact that the initial meeting was secret, amidst antagonism or maandamano and the belligerence that was coming from Ruto himself and his team, speaks volumes about the politics of conmanship, the politics of deception, and the crookedness of our political conversations and relationships. When you have only two men meeting at night in the presence of a foreigner who has not featured here, Olusegun Obasanjo, who is an eminent African, was sitting in between Raila and Ruto. He has not featured anywhere. He has not given a statement anywhere. So whose interest was he representing? Who negotiated for his coming to Kenya? Who are these individuals, organizations, or nations that are very interested in Ruto-Raila conversation that led to quickly a convention at Bomas of Kenya,
yes,
and without input of critical institutions? You know, what has happened at Bomas is exactly what happened with BBI. BBI did not go to any place that I know in Nyeri. The nearest they came was a quickly convened meeting at a place near Sagana. Then people were transported in buses. The local people did not have it. And you see the consequence of it. We could see it in the Meru Stadium when the BBI team went there. You could see people are completely disconnected. People are bussed from Laikipia, from Nakuru, that is the region, Mount Kenya region. Then in Kisumu, Homa Bay, Migori, and Siaya, people are bussed again to Kisii. So, in a nutshell, what has happened and the report that has been presented by Kalonzo Musyoka and Kimani Ichung'wah is actually a fraud. And it is something that needs to be investigated. It's only that, unfortunately, EACC, again, like in the past, captured by the mercenaries of political falsehoods. Otherwise, today, EACC should be investigating how money was appropriated, who was paid what at Bomas, for what intention, why is there no transparency? Who is facilitating this? In the original Bomas that led to the referendum of 2005, there was inclusivity of players. The referendum fell. But in 2010, again, there was a lot of activities across the country coming together, and that's how we have devolution. That's why we restructured the executive. That's how we empowered the parliament. That's how we created constitutional commissions, you know, from human rights to salaries, to gender, to public service. Okay, we have very many institutions that are supposed to empower our governance from 2010. This particular report from so-called, because it is not at the National Dialogue Committee. It is not National Dialogue. Let's call it what it is. This report by Raila and Ruto team, okay, is about creating positions. Office of the leader of opposition,
yes,
with the two deputies in parliament. I don't know whether they will go to Senate or they will go to sit in the National Assembly. Then we have a position of Prime Minister. Ruto himself was the very first person. He was very opposed to the end, or pretended to be opposed to the call for a national dialogue. But he was the first, yesterday in church, to say, I have seen the highlights of this report, and therefore, they are welcome, I endorse them immediately.
Because he said the report is good for the country.
It's good. When did he read it? Then Raila today was saying somewhere, I think he was somewhere in Kisumu, yes, he was saying that he has not read, they are going to convene on Wednesday, the day after tomorrow, to give a report. The truth of the matter, because we live in this country, yes, and we know the contours of this country, is that they know what is in that report. It is them who wrote it. What was happening at Bomas and elsewhere was just motions in order to in order to deceive people or mislead people. So didn't Azimio go to maandamano? What was the cause in maandamano? There were two things: electoral theft or electoral fraud, or issues to do with the presidential elections last year, and the question of cost of living. But when the list of issues to be discussed was presented, the cost of living matters were sidelined until we made a national outcry, and then it was included. Today, it is absent.
Where then does...
What is the priority for this country today? It is to ensure, my friend Maringa, that thousands, millions of students who cannot access university education do access now. As I speak, and as we talk about other issues, the question of depression is escalating daily. And the suicide cases. I had a conversation with people from my county, Nyeri. You remember last year in July there was a report from about that county. And the previous year there was a report even carried by the Guardian newspaper of London about the young men being, the crisis of suicides because of mental health, because of depressions and all that. Now we have missed university education. Fees is not for the coming. The Higher Education Laws Board is not for the coming. We are now grading courses. If you are admitted to do engineering or architecture or law or those professional courses, including medicine, you're supposed to pay higher fees. So we have now made university education, tertiary education, an exclusive benefit for those who have money and those who are able to manipulate their way in by way of maybe scholarships, or they have agencies that can give them bursaries. Look at what is happening with KCPE. Okay? Today, you are seeing a school, nearly 100 students are getting the same mark. Same mark from the first one to the last one. 75% in one school, nearly 100 students. This is happening. Look at the statements that are coming from FKE, the Federation of Kenya Employers. Look at the statements that have come from the blue chip companies that are listed in Nairobi Stock Exchange. Relocations, close downs, look at even reports on from financial institutions, including banks. Our key banks, 20% drop in profits. In Tanzania, in Uganda, in DRC, profits up. So we have a crisis not of political leadership per se. Of course, my view is that Ruto has failed. And I would say this 24/7, 365. As a president, you can see his advisors, how arrogant they are. You can see the ministers, what they are saying every day. You can see he's telling us to tighten our belts when he is wearing a million Kenyan shillings belt. But the truth of the matter, he is the president. Okay? The truth of the matter is that buck stops at his desk. He has constitutional obligations to deliver for the country. But the issues being addressed by this so-called NADCO report have nothing to do with the resolutions of the problems bedeviling our country today.
So where do Kenyans then, Mheshimiwa, look up to? Because then this is a government that was voted in. There was a presidential election petition. But, the government is the government. Over 1 year now in office. Where do then Kenyans look up to?
Kenyans have had hopes dissipated, but we have had a resurrection of the same. So we may be disappointed with the president, but you have your MCA at the local level. Okay? That's is a constitutional office. Okay, that was elected. There are 1,450 MCAs elected directly by the people. So because of the importance of devolution, we should be asking questions from the top to the bottom, from the bottom to the top. Therefore, what are our governors doing? They have received the money. They have devolved functions. Therefore, we have members of parliament And by parliament, I mean the county assemblies, the Senate, and the National Assembly. So we can look up to those people individually, not collectively, because they're still good people among our elected leaders. They are there. And they are speaking the right things, they are trying to do the right things. The environment may not be very, very, very good. But also there is another movement that was very important and has always been important in the world, and that's a non-political, non-partisan, and perhaps even non-political organizations like the labor movement.
Yeah.
Of course, the labor movement in Kenya, is in ICU. It's opportunistically shifting according to who is holding the bone. Then you have a professional organization like Law Society of Kenya doing a very good job even now. You have the civil society, the Kenya Human Rights Commission and others are coming up very strongly to raise importance. Then you have individuals who are still spotlighting important issues. Like now, the CJ, Chief Justice Emeritus William Mutunga, and others. We still have those voices there. We have the activists like Ruben Kigame and others. Okay, we have former members of parliament like Keter, our friend, and others, and doing whatever they could do. So Kenyans have many people they can look up to for opinion and for mobilization. And I think when government fails to work, when there's darkness in the realm of power, even the dimmest stars will shine brightest.
Whereas the government at the same time, Mheshimiwa, has requested Kenyans to give them time to be able to implement this. We all know that Rome was not built in a day, so that the Englishmen say. But with such a situation as the NADCO report, because it was expected that it would, perhaps be able to create a solution to all these issues that you bring up.
Who expected that? Who expected that?
A section of Kenyans, Mheshimiwa.
I'm telling you, in this Kenya that we live, I don't know many people. You called me last time and I was in the village. And I was in the village for those 2 weeks, until last week but one. When you're in the village, we talk with our neighbors, we talk with our friends. And we also go to social places when you're in Nairobi. I have not had any animated discussion. In fact, I've not been to a place where people have talked about the Kalonzo Ichung'wa committee. I'm telling you, truth of God. And I'll be surprised if there's anyone in Kisumu town or in Iten or in Namu or in Mukurwe-ini who has gone to a place and because of the national interest, the critical questions being addressed, who have been talking about this. The only time you may hear a comment is when those guys appear on TV, and mostly it's a comment of dismissal and disdain. Like, these guys, what are they doing? They are just wasting time. So the expectations of people, in my estimate, because I've not done any research, has been that which we got yesterday.
Okay. And, there was even a statement of dissent from quarters of the Kenya Kwanza.
Yes, yeah.
We had, what Ndindi-Nyoro, the Honorable Ndindi-Nyoro MP for Kiharu said. Yes. Do you think that then perhaps it's high time that the government listened to its own people?
Which government? Ruto's government?
Yes, Ruto's government.
It's a cacophony of a government.
When you ask which government,
yes, I'm saying yes. I'm being rhetorical in this regard. Ni kama swala la balga alihitaji jawabu. That there isn't any evidence so far that is statecraft, that is maturity and order and sovereign governance has emanated from the Ruto regime 1 year later. The statements that come from Ruto, from El-Nino. Can you imagine? A whole president says, the people met, the meteorological department, the people in charge of weather, forecast, are saying now there will not be any rain. Okay? And he says that, casual like that. Then we get the director general of the department says, nobody has authority to speak about these weather matters, apart from these organizations. And then yesterday the president was saying, we went to Nyayo Stadium, we prayed for rain. Now you have a lot of rain. Okay? Then he met again a day before, 2 days before. He had a cabinet meeting. And then he said, we are going to have an emergency cabinet meeting on Monday. A cabinet is not an AGM where you can call a special AGM. A cabinet is the topmost organ that governs a country. They are supposed to be 24/7 ready. They are not supposed to tell us we are going to meet after 2 days or 3 days. It is an emergency cabinet meeting. The question and responsibility of governors is an emergency at all times. You are receiving security briefs every morning. And on the hour, if something happens, like how some communities are being exterminated in Lamu, and without any security interventions that appear credible, or how bandits are running amok, despite in Baringo, despite all the assurances. You get those briefs immediately. And sometimes you act without even announcing you're acting. What is happening in the Ruto administration is, you call it trial and error leadership. You try this, then there's a mistake. You try the other one, there is a mistake. Well, the most famous statement from William Ruto when they were launching the manifesto of Jubilee at Kasarani 2017 was that the other guys then, NASA, were clueless, pointless, aimless, and so on and so forth. So I don't want to appear like I'm very harsh or very unkind to the government. But the truth of the matter is that this government is a skirmish, is rotten in corruption to the core. Whether it is the oil deal they are talking about, whether it's the rescue they are focusing on state corporations, running in campaigns every week, Thanksgivings everywhere, but those Thanksgivings is about M-Pesa priests and bishops being given money. But we are taking, as you are, back to the question, where do you look up to? You have seen people being excited about the two priests at the Holy Family Basilica, the Catholic priest. They are not only talking about Muheria now, the Archbishop in Nyeri. They are talking about any voice of sobriety and encouragement and inspiration emanating from the church. You are seeing many statements from Maboka in Bogoma County, Member of Parliament, from Nandi Hills, from Keter, even a tweet from Kabando or Mukurwe-ini. You'll see a lot of response because people are very disappointed with the government. So we are not being unkind to the government, but I want anybody to flag. I've seen the economic advisors. Some of them are my friends, by the way. Some we even went to school with. And we meet them in the streets.
Do you speak to them? Do you tell
yes, I can tell you even 2 days ago I had the opportunity to meet one and they spoke. But I can tell you, they are so ashamed and so paranoid, so fearful to appear even in social places or even to start with you to be introduced formally because they know they are on a bad wagon of a leaking ship.
Okay, we will take a short break on that note. When we come back, we focus on other issues, the El-Nino preparedness. We've seen what the cabinet, what the spokesperson, state house spokesperson Hussein Mohammed said earlier today. Also, we look at other issues, including the education sector. Do stay with us and keep your feedback coming. You're watching the Daily Report. It is exactly 4 minutes past 10 o'clock. Thank you so much for staying with us. You're watching the Daily Report right here on TV 47. My guest in studio is former Mukurwe-ini Member of Parliament, Kabando, a politician and an activist here in Kenya. Mheshimiwa, thank you for staying with us. We've seen, that NADCO report. First of all, even before we get out of it completely, what needs to happen ideally? We know that it's supposed to be handed over to the former Prime Minister as well as President William Ruto. It is, they're supposed to then perhaps have a consensus and deliberate on the issues forward. We heard what President Ruto said yesterday, that what needs to be implemented, from the executive, he will do that. From Parliament, he will expedite. Do you see honesty in that comment, in that, expression of the President?
Ruto is very happy with that report because he knows he's useless. He knows he has played these other people. But I don't think Raila has been played. He has also been predicting this because, as I said, those discussions were done before. Just like what happened with Ruto and Raila in Mombasa It's exactly what happened with Raila and Uhuru on the 9th of March, 2018 at Arabi House. Then the rest is choreographed.
Okay.
You know, it's laid out. You get your people, bring them on board. Then, you know, we do some formations here and there so that then you can appease the people. You know, I saw the statement that about the fuel crisis. Raila was referring to Ruto, President Ruto. So now Ruto is no longer illegitimate. So you see, through that process, and I will not be surprised, by the way. I will not be surprised that I'm not making any allegations because I have no evidence. Yes. But more often than not, in fact, always, money changes hands.
Money changes hands.
Yes, changes hands.
So,
and when money changes hands, it means it's corruption. It means it's a crooked and fraudulent transactional political process. So what are you supposed to do with the report? If Ruto says he's going to do what he's supposed to do, so exactly what is he going to do in the executive?
Is this the 20?
He is not changing the cornerstone of the economic grievance during maandamano. Now, maandamano doesn't mean always those who went physically to the streets. For instance, I never went to the streets, but I was doing my networking and supporting in my own ways, and other people did so. There are other people even who are in the home because they are aged or they are unable to move. They were praying that these maandamano succeed, and Ruto is brought to the negotiation table to deal with the issues of cost of living. Now, there is no question. Ruto, Raila said, chill, the Minister for Energy, and Professor Dungu, Jogona, the CS for Treasury, should resign. So those are now calls for the ministers to resign, not for the government to come down. The minimum expectation of the people is that this government should fall.
So then that report needs to be stored in another cabinet?
That report, as I said, is a deception, is a fraud, it is totally useless, it has no space, and we are beseeching the judiciary not to submit, not to become subservient, tail-wagging surrogate of Ruto's regime, like the independent commissions, including EACC, have become. We wish that the judiciary, like it did in the past on BBI, remains steadfast, patriotic, and conscientious to ensure that this fraudulent process does not move forward. The politicians can do the things they want to do. They can play their own business transactions and their interests of their people around for their own settlement, but to the welfare of the people. The questions of redressing taxation is what people would expect it to happen. Like now, as I said, you're seeing from EP's end to listed companies, to medium-sized manufacturers. Before I came here, I stopped in a restaurant and I was talking to the general manager and the director, and they are laying off. Things are becoming very difficult. Okay? A client walked in and said, oh, you should reduce one item to 200 from 250, jokingly. He's a friend of mine. And they were like, how do you even think of that when you are barely managing to pay our utilities, particularly on Kenya Power, which is now reportedly falling according to the chief auditor. So things are not rosy, they are not good. And unfortunately, our veteran politicians, our seniors, because of their selfish interest and greed, and their myopic pursuit of power at the expense of ideological menu, which means pushing Ruto, and we should do that as a president because he's already there, and myself, I say he is in office constitutionally. But that does not mean that he should finish his term. There are those of us who are praying, but the people pretend, and sometimes we play because we think to say these things is dangerous. We should mobilize Kenyans in our own small ways until we bring down the government of William Ruto. Because I'm telling you, like his friend Jirongo said, because we work together in our IK, the greatest in Kanu. And they say that that clip you see is going out when he was being interviewed by Tony Gachoka in another television station. Is that people have, it's like, you know, over the weekend, let me bring this. There's a clip that was going around saying that those who believe that Ruto can deliver as a president are no different from children who believe there is a Father Christmas who comes on the eve of Christmas Day, 24th of December, with gifts which they are presented to by parents the following morning, and they are told it's Father Christmas who came at night and led them at the doorstep.
That's too much condemnation for a head of state who is saying that he is
well, I think those who are in opposition,
yes,
and I'm in opposition, although not affiliated to any particular political party, yes, have a very basic and foundational duty, inalienable duty, to call the regime in power to order. And today, we are vindicated on every step, every day, that whatever the wheelbarrow campaign, the so-called bottom-up, which some of us felt at one stage was about social democracy, egalitarian politics, where there is equity and equality. You spend finances and resources like would happen in Finland or in Norway or in Sweden, where those who are at the bottom benefit. Today, you can see what is happening to hawkers. You can see what is happening to shopkeepers. You can see what is happening to, in my home village. I come from one of the remotest villages of Nyeri, near Sagana and Muranga town. I'm at the last village bordering Kirinyaga and Muranga. People from national government, together with the people from the county government, are going to people's homesteads to record how many trees you have of avocados or macadamia, coffee, how many chicken you have. We are now not looking at elevating and empowering the farmer from the grassroots. We are salivating at every fruit we see being produced by a farmer who is drawing water using a jerrycan to go and water. And irrigate. And we are not talking about how much water we have taken as government to the communities to benefit. So it's not much condemnation. Ruto is a failure and is a disaster. In fact, let me tell you, my friend, just the other day, he was giving very good speeches around until Africans saw him. Recently, last week, he was in Tanzania. You saw what he was told by Samia. Yes, we want money on climate change. We want money from outside there. But what about we Africans mobilizing the resources we have to organize ourselves before we go with the begging bowl to IMF and World Bank and the European Union? Ruto was in Europe last week, and he was given a standing ovation. The following day, the European Parliament voted word for word, sentence for sentence, clause for clause, to anything to do with equality and equity in the financial system in the world. So they can clap for Ruto. They clap for Mobutu Sese Seko of Zaire as they raped the Democratic Republic of Congo after killing Patrice Lumumba.
Let's look at...
So really, I think I would be very dishonest and very unfair to the people of this country, including our children, and those that are looking up to us to give a voice to praise Ruto.
What then does President Dr. William Ruto need to do moving forward? Because we've even seen that the courts, the High Court has suspended the implementation of the...
Social health.
Yeah, social health, the 3 acts which have now become into law. First of all, is taxation the way to improve a country's economy?
You see, the courts are stopping this because of, he is now not even taxing the net salary. He's talking about your total income. even that which will be taxed, including the amounts that are meant for income tax, and others, NSSF, and so on and so forth. He is taxing now gross, everything. So it's another additional tax. Ruto calls himself a Kibaki. He says he'll be a Kibaki. But in terms of mannerism, Kibaki was a gentleman of Kenyan politics. In terms of demeanor, of decency, Kibaki will not, unless you saw those little jokes he had. Kibaki, even as a member of parliament in Othaya for nearly 5 decades, never insulting his opponents. In terms of listening, Ruto's cabinet, Kenyans need to know. Cabinet ministers are reading about appointments in their ministries done by Felix Kosgei, who is the head of the civil service. There are no ministers, there are no CSs. You are told you are the CS for agriculture, you are the CS for education and all that. Your Minister of Education is being run by a Ruto surrogate who receives a call from Ruto every morning to be told what you are supposed to do. You have seen what has happened even in the appointment of a sugar company just last week. Okay? Nepotism.
So what needs to be done, Mheshimiwa, moving forward?
What we need to do is to keep the tempo on criticism. I know people say we should give solutions. We are not in government. I'm not a member of parliament. But I can lobby for the remedial legislation, and that we do. And we do in many formats. We talk to people we know, those who are ready to listen. We write petitions. We also agitate and lobby a petition publicly so that we campaign on issues that you have seen the media has done that also, individual through social media, and you can see moves being done. Now, I think the singular most important agenda now in Kenya for anybody who has a political voice is to shout, is to urge, is to lobby, is to network, it is to campaign, so that those who are in power can make the necessary remedial actions. Well, there are areas that we know individual can be corrigible. Completely, they may not change. All right? But that is still the option we have in a constitutional democracy. We need to mobilize our caucuses, whether they are political leaders elected or political leaders, whether they are social or community leaderships and all that. We need to mobilize how we did in the past, and I think we are doing slowly. My former teacher and friend, Kibuta Kibwana, was conversing just the other day. And he was asking, Kabando, what do we do now? There's some time we have organized before, and you have succeeded, both at the University of Nairobi when he was a dean. And we had to do something, and we got the student organization on board. So there's something that Kenyans should not let go. It is a freedom to organize and freedom to agitate. That includes the demonstrations, picketing, it includes those voices. If members of parliament, I am asking, looking you in the eye, you citizen who is watching, if a minister comes, a CS comes to your community to talk nonsense or to raise useless projects, boo them and heckle them. If we make their lives very difficult in the villages, where they come wearing watches of 1 million and wearing shoes of 1 million and bells of 1 million, vomiting on your shoes, vomiting on your bare feet, please shout, heckle. It is a very important way of agitating. It happens in South Africa. We are not going to arm the struggle in Kenya because we have a very good constitution. But then there must be a movement, and I want to, like say, here supporting Raila and agreeing with him. What is happening when Chil was booed? It was a message to Ruto. Now, was booed. It's a message to Ruto. Ruto himself, particularly if he comes to my village, I can organize for him to be echoed.
Mheshimiwa, those are your words. And
well, I'm the one who is talking.
You're the one who is talking.
Yeah.
But indeed, when you look at the solutions of then the president, in terms of perhaps listening to what is going on the ground, as you say, do you think that perhaps he needs to lend a more listening ear to the concerns being raised and perhaps take a different approach? Because we are seeing the courts have, quashed the second, this perhaps, after the housing levy, then now comes the health, quashing of the health acts. Do you think that perhaps then a slowdown or a U-turn or an about turn to perhaps get rid of the notion that the hustlers have been forgotten?
Well, yes, let me answer that. But I want to answer that by first explaining a point.
Okay.
You see what Steve Biko did in South Africa, the struggle against racist apartheid.
Yes.
You see what people are doing in sympathy and in solidarity with Palestine. As a young boy, I always, when I listened to 1 o'clock news of Voice of Kenya then, I had the PLO, Yasser Arafat, leader, always visiting our capital to come solicit for solidarity. Sam Nujoma coming from Namibia, Oliver Tambo coming from South Africa. The global voices make a difference. And since now ours is the domesticated struggle. The world knows that Kenya is a free nation. We are a sovereign state. We have a very progressive constitution. We need now to cascade rebellion and resistance to oppression, to overtaxation, to robbery by government officials, to corruption and to incompetence by doing exactly what our forefathers, and I mean Martin Luther King in America, I mean even Malcolm X, I mean Nelson Mandela, and even Mahatma Gandhi in India. Non-violent protest in Kenya today is a very important and indispensable tool to stem the tide of tyranny that is emerging, like we are creating a new oligarchy, a kleptocracy, government of people who are very competent and very corrupt. It's very important to tell people that. Otherwise, you will be talking theories every day. I come here, talk about Finance Act, I talk about something else. I use my Twitter handle to influence people.
Yes.
And when I go to the village, I'll walk out on a priest who go to the podium, muses a funeral or a wedding or a prayer meeting to deodorize the state because some money has been sent or a car has been bought or because you are part of the cheering crowd that has created hypotomy to the extent that people in my community are being insulted for making their democratic choice and other areas. You have had people calling others to ganges. Okay, even maybe as we are sometimes attempted to do that. But it's because people are angry, are saying, you people, you did this. Kuleni ujeurienu, kitamuramba. So we need that. So then the judiciary stopping that act is what some people call judicial activism. Very, very important. William Mutuga brought it.
Okay.
And I think we still have very many voices. You know, when BBI fell, I was somewhere adjacent to this studio in somebody's house. And I remember Professor Ngogi reading the ruling. And, even neighbors that come because of the hearings we are making there. We need to encourage Kenyans to be outspoken, to be bold, to take a risk. We wish Ruto to succeed. We wish his cabinet performs well. But when you have a cabinet of thieves and incompetent people.
Well, Mheshimiwa.
No. Listen, there are people in the cabinet.
Yes.
I know this is not about TV 47. This is about Kabando that gets you called.
Yes.
That you have people in Ruto's cabinet, some with murder cases being dropped, corruption cases, others in controversial deals on head oil, on these. You have even a senator from Nandi. You know, the senator from Nandi was on TV the other day, DStv, saying that the cabinet secretary in charge of transport have been bribed to a tune of $100 million. That's a new DA senator, one of the closest confidants of William Ruto.
So
we have seen also
is there hope for this country?
Yesterday, I read a tweet from my friend, and I call him my friend because we are friends. though we have not met now for nearly 2 years, David Day. Yesterday he said, I'm not going to defend incompetence. I'm not going to support anybody vomiting on the public issues. I'm not going to support somebody corruption in government. David D is the chief economic advisor to William Ruto. William Ruto praised David Day. He raised David Cecil. He praised Kipto of EPRA. And he also praised Mohammed Hassan because of the deal with Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates on fuel. So who is taking the money?
Do you think then that the government is listening to such voices?
It is not listening.
And so apart from, the action that you've spoken about, is there hope then for Kenya?
The first action that should happen in Kenya, Dogu Maringa of TV 47, is that this report from bombers being signed by Kalonzo should not see the light of the day. If that report falls, it makes we who are in the opposition, whether we belong to Azimio or we belong to civil society or individual independence voicing, will come easily together. But if that report sees the light of the day, Raila will be in the parliament as the leader of opposition. We have mutilated the Constitution of Kenya 2010. In the system Kenya we have today, it's not hybrid, it's presidential. So we have the leader of majority, leader of minority, all the way to county assemblies. So if now you change at the top, you have Raila as the leader of opposition, and then Kalonzo is a deputy, and then Mother is a deputy. What happens to the other 48? 8 parliament? Because then they will go to be either in the Senate. That's what they are going to work. Then you have the National Assembly and other 47 parliament in the counties. Okay. So if that stops, would be good. Number 2, Ruto sees Sir William Bill Samoei, you are the president. And some of us said, though we did not vote for you, you are legitimate and you are there in power. Kindly move fast and terminate your entire cabinet. Go back to the field, source new cabinet secretaries and new PSs, and start afresh. Perhaps you'll have an opportunity to deliver. Otherwise, with the team you have now, you are just carrying a jerrycan of rotten eggs.
What a way to wind up the show right here on the Daily Report. Speaking to Mheshimiwa Kabando wa Kabando, of course, expressing his sentiments right here on the show. Those are his sentiments, and of course, they do not represent the stand of TV 47. Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa, for joining us.
I want to thank you very much. But I will also say that TV stations or other media should not apologize for the individuals they call like Kabando to speak truth to power and to say, Ruto, your government is rotten. It is me.
Sawa, Mheshimiwa. Thank you so much for joining us. That's why we end up the show. My name is George Maringa. I'll see you tomorrow on The People's Court. Good night from Nairobi. Mheshimiwa.